Stand by for the Brandon Bonanza.
It's the Brandon Bonanza.
Oops. Only if I knew what I was doing, everybody. Hang on. Here we go. Stand by for the Brandon Bonanza show.
Bonanza. We're hanging out. It's the Brandon Bonanza show. Bonanza. We're hanging out on the Brandon Bonanza show. Hanging out on the Brandon Bonanza show. Yeah.
Yeah. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Brandon Bonanza podcast. I'm so excited today for my returning guests and for the topic that we're going to be talking about. But in usual Brandon Bonanza fashion, before we get going, I'm just going to read today's quote and then we'll take it from there. All right, today's quote. No surprise. It's from Dune by Frank Herbert, but you don't even have to be familiar with Dune to get this. Okay. Deep in the human unconscious is a I'm going to try this again, everybody. Take two. Deep in the human unconscious is a pervasive need for a logical universe that makes sense. But the real universe is always one step beyond logic. And again, that's the lovely Frank Herbert, author of Dune. So today my guests are Joe P and Jeff coming back. We had a episode we did a couple weeks ago, and then I spoke with Jeff alone on my show, and we have a little group chat going, and in there we were talking about propaganda-ish kind of stuff. You'll see, just like everything else on the show, it's not what it seems. You guys probably aren't gonna, well, some people might guess what we're going to be talking about, but it's not exactly the normal stuff that gets talked about when people talk about propaganda. But anyway, what do you guys think of the quote? I think I will ask Jill first because I know Jill likes to be an observer and sit back a lot, which is great. We love him for that. But what did you think of that quote, Joe?
That's a good quote. I think I understand what he's meaning, or I'm interpreting it in a certain way, at least. Um, the universe is actually, I found to be extremely logical, but you can't see the logical connections if you're stuck inside a certain box. So you're constantly expanding. And as you're expanding, you might not be seeing the logic until years down the line when your consciousness has expanded. You've overcome certain dualities and you have a bigger understanding in general, a bit like a more holistic context. And then all of a sudden, then you can make the logical connections. You're like, oh, there's the logic, but you can't always see the logic until you expand farther out, farther out, farther out. So that's how I kind of interpret it. So
Yeah, I like that 100%. I think it's very true. There's something that kind of defies logic from a certain angle. You're looking at it, you're like, doesn't make sense. But when you open your mind enough, or you just start to accept things, or whatever it is that you do, maybe you do with drugs. I mean, whatever gets you there. But you could see the whole big picture, which I'm kind of a big picture guy, so I'm always seeing that stuff. But what did you think, Jeff, about this quote? You said you were going to meditate on it when I put it in the group chat, so I was excited. And welcome, of course, by the way.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me again. Yeah, logic. There was a time where I tried to find the logic in life, and I found it's ever expanding. And the more it's expanding, the more I am learning and understanding. Logic can twist and turn and seem totally weird and chaotic, but usually there's a deeper meaning that I just didn't get yet. So yeah, I'm not too stuck up on logic anymore. I embrace the chaos, and I feel that it's doing me good in my life. But yeah, not too much logic.
Yeah, I hear you. That's chaos. It's funny that you mentioned chaos because I feel like propaganda, the subject that we're going to be talking about, does have a little bit to do with chaos to a certain degree. Were you done, by the way? I didn't cut you off, did I? Sometimes I.
Oh yeah, when you cut me off, I'm done.
I like that. You're right. You're done. That's it. Next. No.
No, I'm good. And
Um,
I also think I really would like to sit back and listen to Joe, so he cannot be the observer today.
oh
Yeah.
no, I'll participate a little more this time, but I'm also looking forward to hearing you guys' insights. So don't put the whole show on me.
No, no. Oh, don't worry. I have to talk. It's my ego. I embrace it. No. But yeah, I'm excited too because of the way that we talk about this. So I guess I'll open it up by saying that we're going to be talking about propaganda. Everybody probably saw that in the title. But the lens that we look at things from, well, I could speak for myself. So this is what I'm going to bring to the conversation now. I think of the collective unconscious. And, in my view, as crazy as it might sound, I feel like everybody's unconscious or even their conscious mind is what creates the world that we see to a certain extent. The reason I say that is because it's already been proven that who knows if it's proven, but it's been looked at and it sounds good that this consciousness kind of is an inside out thing, we're not looking out, we're looking in. And our senses are speaking to us. You can even just look at the sense of sight, right? So the way that sight works, allegedly from a podcast I listen to, is that there's a picture in the back of your head and it's even upside down. So your eyes are like shooting it to there, and then you see it and your brain processes it. And it even takes some time to do that. I mean, it's like, milliseconds or whatever. So just that alone, we think these eyes are looking out and seeing right, exactly what's in front of us, but that's not the case at all. And so just that little example, right? I'm looking at consciousness is like inward focused. And I really feel like if everybody believes something, everybody in the world or in the realm believes it, then I think it's going to be possible. And that's what it's going to create. So based on that line of thought, the whole subject of propaganda really just opens up because you're not just talking about controlling a populace or a bunch of people or trying to get them to go to war or trying to sell them Coca-Cola or trying to do whatever. You're really building what's going on around you at that point if you're, say, one of these masters of propaganda or whatever. And I mean, maybe are there masters? Who knows? Is it even of this realm? Like what's going on? Who knows? We'll get into all that stuff. But that's kind of the way that I look at it. And Joe, what do you think? I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yeah, I see it the same. I see that we know, and you can experiment and see yourself that you can manifest things in your own life. And I mean, everybody's doing it all the time. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is that, okay, yeah, you're manifesting, but everybody else on this fucking planet is also manifesting, and they have just as much of a right to manifest as you, technically speaking. So what we're experiencing through the collective unconscious, if you want to, jump up on that level from the individual up to all of humanity, it all of humanity is in a sense manifesting this world, and certain people, sorcerers, if you want to call them that, propagandists, as we call them in the modern age, are using certain techniques that have been discovered over fucking eons of time, probably, and are utilizing it to get people to manifest certain things. The more people you have on board, the more power you have to bring something into manifestation. So, and they know that, and it can be utilized for anything, to selling Coca-Cola, to getting you to vote for a certain politician, on and on and on, just as Brandon was just talking about. So, yeah, I'm totally
Yeah,
on board with that theory as well. That's what I observe as well. So,
I just want to break in really quickly. I love that, but I wanted to also open up a little bit because so I kind of said like a little woo woo thing with my description. Maybe not for everybody. Some people are getting it, but you can also look at it in just a physical, like from a materialist mindset. You could look at how people shape the way things are looked at and the way things develop and happen in this world, and it's all based on our connections with other people and the way that our brains work. And a lot of people say it's similar to a computer, and that's where you get simulation theory. Sometimes people come in with that, but I feel like it's just because our brains work, or actually, a computer is just a poor substitute for our brain or poor copy of our brain. So that's why it seems like it works the same way. But if you are a materialist, you can look at this as the way the propaganda works, they actually are shaping everything that's going on. Maybe you might not think it's the mountains and the trees like I might think, but just what we see out in the world every day. And like you were saying, these propagandists are master of propaganda and all the stuff that they learned. And the reason I brought that up is because Joe was talking about like been doing this for eons. So somebody might look at it and be like, I don't know, doesn't make sense. But if you think of how the collective unconscious works and how our brains work, even if there's smaller groups of people, I mean, I think there was probably more people, but even if they were smaller, this was just known by a certain group of people, and they were the ones that ended up ruling. So they had these tricks that they would use. And it's funny because these tricks echo out so much. Like you see them in the news, but also I was in the nightclub business because I'm a DJ, for a while. I mean, I didn't own a nightclub. I just used to DJ in nightclubs. And you see all these parties happen. They recycle these parties. And then especially when you had college night, you could just recycle them every year because people are moving out every 4 years or whatever. So it's just this thing that works, and it was corny, like they'd have a black and white party or whatever, but it just got people there. It was crazy. So yeah, I think I'm gonna stop talking and throw it over to Jeff and let him weigh in on all this.
There are a lot of good points that you guys made. I prepared in a very simple way. I reread a few pages of Edward Bernays' books to get in the mood and remember some things. And I think we are on the same page with the collective unconscious. I think the three of us have a similar worldview in that regard. Also, I believe that it's an old thing, the sorcerers or the propagandists or vice versa. Yeah, we don't see the world as it is through our flesh suit. And also with everybody has the right to manifest. This is something that we often forget. I think this is very, very important to hit home, that everybody is necessary. I think once we understand that, we make a big leap. And yeah, the power to manifest. The more people on board, the more power to manifest. Yeah, I could babble about that for 2 hours now. So this is really, yeah, I believe that. There's this short thing. The one story, I don't know what movie that was, and it was a bit mystical, explorer type, Indiana Jones type movie. And there was in Tibetan mountains, Himalayas, or whatever, and there were monks and they were meditating in a temple. And if they stopped meditating, the world would end. And they really found those monks and they tried to drag them off because they wanted to end the world. We don't know, but I think this is powerful because we laugh about it. Come on, man, this is bullshit. But maybe there's these few monks, I mean, Joe and I talked about Plan B's being a monk and meditating to keep the world going around. Why not? I believe that.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. I just laugh because the realizations that come to me, because we did this episode on Bigfoot and the law of one, and the entity Ra was saying they just started talking about Bigfoots out of nowhere and saying how they're here because they have like a higher tolerance to radiation. And maybe if something happens, the Bigfoots will still be here. So I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, the Bigfoots, maybe they're the ones that are manifesting a lot of the nature and the stuff we see or whatever, if there are these creatures or whatever. And if humans did wipe ourselves out somehow, and I feel like it's never forever. Even if every human did die, I think we would somehow come back here, just respawn or whatever. But maybe if that happened, there's like a way for like some diabolical person to kill every man and woman, and then this realm would just disappear. But since the Bigfoots are here, they can't get to them, so it still exists in their mind, just in that same way, right? It's yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it gets ever worse because to them we are a menace, a pest. So we are being reimagined worse and worse.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're gonna have
I
tails.
like that. Being ever more evil.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I that's what I like. I was gonna focus on what you said is people don't realize, or some people don't realize that everybody does have the right to manifest, and even if it's something that you would think is quote unquote bad or negative, if it's not harming you, I mean, you could even say if it is harming you, they still have the right to do it because it is being done. So it really is the free will for you there is just to decide how you feel about it as it's happening. Are you taking it as a challenge that you can overcome? Or are you like, oh, this person's, doing this and I feel terrible and I'm a victim. It's that whole mindset. But I think that is important and it's a good step to realize and start to look at that you don't have to judge other people. You don't have to agree with what they do, or you don't have to hang out with them. You can even tell them to fuck off if you want, but you don't have to let yourself get triggered by what they do.
I make a claim. It's not mine necessarily, but I'll make it. Because people are not manifesting actively, there is propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
That's what Edward Bernays said, in a way.
Wow.
In Crystallizing Public Opinion, he wrote about how the terminology and everything went sideways, and tried to kind of redeem the craft. And it always comes down to we are forming, or we are in the process of forming a society of individuals where everybody is worth being heard. That's what we call democracy. And he starts and says, like, back then, the Greeks didn't have that. They had the city state. The individual didn't exist like that. With the Romans and all, it formed, of course, but it wasn't like today. And then we thought with the advent of the book press and everything, we would start creating amazing things. But no, we don't. Most people just recite garbage. They just take preformed notions and they just regurgitate them. And this is a problem.
Like you're talking about Facebook. Sorry, go ahead, keep going, keep going.
Well, yeah, maybe, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, and their propaganda comes in because it's a tool for steering societies.
Mhm.
Bernays says it's neither good nor bad. It's the intention of those who do it, and those who do it for bad things, they already know that they're going to do bad things with it, which I say is very surface level, good and bad thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can give one example to make it a bit more clear. I didn't find it in the books. I wanted to find it and read it, but it escaped me. But I kind of know it by heart because it was so strong. Um, yeah, the one thing we're living in an age where everybody's voice is worth being heard. Everybody has dignity, has rights and all. Is an individual, which is not necessarily true, but we can be. And through that, everybody's has a right to be heard, and that makes the political process impossible because everything would take forever. This is why we vote for people who represent us, and so we form a pyramid scheme. It's just for pragmatic reasons.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we want to put out opinions, agendas, so to say. I mean, when we have a meeting, we have an agenda for a meeting. When there's a business meeting, we have an agenda. We say we talk about this and this and that, and the talking points. So he says, yeah, we put it out so that people are on par and that we tell people what is good, what is like really like the good, the common good. And it's very important. He brings an example where he says, for example, making propaganda, making, for example, for big companies, for corporations, it's so necessary, and the corporations need to do propaganda because they are like literally like he doesn't use the term, but they're too big to fail. We have this enterprises, this endeavors, and there are hundreds, thousands, hundred thousands of people, maybe like down the supply chains, millions of people and their livelihoods at stake. So we have to keep those businesses, those endeavors alive. You know, like the United States, and we're all three of us have an American passport, so God bless America, right? But I mean, other people in the world, they think America is not good, you know. Outside of America, nobody nowadays thinks America is good. But Americans still need to keep going because everything will collapse otherwise, you know.
Yeah,
So that's why we need the propaganda.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's true, but that's the point for that, you know. There's enterprises that are too big to fail because the people who are influenced by the propaganda, they they are fed by the fruits of the propaganda.
Yeah.
It's grim. I don't know if it's true. It sounds appealing and horrible.
Well, looks pretty true to me. Looks pretty true when you look around.
Yeah, Edward Bernays' approach to this sounds very Taoist because in the Tao it talks about, the best time is when people just know, like, they don't have to be told. And then the next best is like, you have to have rules and then you have to enforce them. It's like each stage gets worse, when it reminds me of the Bhagavad Gita too, it's like it's the scriptures are to a man who knows, they are to water to a flooded plain, basically. Like the man that knows doesn't even need scripture. You don't need any rules or anything like that. But what do you think, Joe? I want to have you talk now. You talk.
Any specific, because you guys covered a lot.
Well, I guess, just like propaganda and how maybe the occult side of it and stuff like that, maybe or
Oh,
whatever.
just like techniques. Yeah, yeah. I mean, techniques, that's what occultism basically is at the end of the day, is you're studying all
Yeah.
this to learn fucking techniques that are mostly used for propaganda. Not, if it's used against other people, we call it black magic, and if we use it on ourselves, we call it quote unquote white magic. I know there's going to be a million fucking people out there who say that's not what black magic and white magic mean, but that's what it means. It means when you get other people's consciousness to manifest something, that's fucking black magic, and when you're doing it on your through your own consciousness, we call it fucking quote unquote white. But yeah, so there's all these different techniques, and they've been demystified a lot, as like people like Bernays came about and whatnot, where now we call it like psychology and um, things along that line, sociology, and there's certain aspects of consciousness. And I'll try not to be too woo woo today, but it's just consciousness. There's certain principles in consciousness that you can kind of hack, and insert your will into that crack, if you will. I don't know how to articulate it best, but there's different techniques to implant certain things that will in time manifest. And uh, the more you do something, the more power is behind it. The more people are on board, the more power is behind it. Um, the more love that you is in you will. All right, that's another. I don't know. I'm going to be wandering all over the place because my brain is doing so many different things. Like this is a very complex thing to talk about. But
No, keep
um,
going, man. That's what we do. We just rant.
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
INTP. Follow you.
So even Aleister Crowley, who I'm not the biggest fan of, not for the reasons why a lot of people are not his fan, but he did one really important thing he did put out that people do not understand is I don't know how the quote exactly is, but love under will. Brian, did you know the actual quote?
Um,
Um,
I could look it up. I know. Yeah.
yeah,
Will. Yeah. Go ahead. Keep
yeah,
talking. We'll look up it.
Is it do what thou wilt?
is the
Um,
whole the law, but it goes
the
on to
law.
say,
Yeah. Is the whole of the law love on the will?
yes, yes,
There you go.
that is the secret to how you manifest is underneath all this shit right now, which is why you do things like meditation to see this, is if you strip away everything, this peace and love is all that's left under everything. It is the connecting force for everything, everywhere. And to be able to manifest is to, yes, apply will to love. And that is the only way anything can be manifested. And so you learn when you're becoming like an occult magician and you're doing all these things, is you're learning how to essentially hack your own consciousness, which just forget about other people for now, just your own consciousness. That's what the biggest thing a magician is doing is he's altering his own consciousness. And the secret to manifesting anything is you have to get that idea that thing you want to manifest into that space of love, so to speak, which is underneath the surface of everything of your unconscious. If you strip everything away, it's there. You can see it. It's not debatable. You just have to actually fucking sit down and try. So to implant something into that energy is how you manifest something. So it's in occultism, like occult magic, you kind of like hack your own consciousness because you're doing like these rituals to force it in there. Because normally it takes time manifesting. It takes, like we were talking the last episode, like it takes acts of will over and over and over, and eventually things change. Well, occult magic is like, fuck that. We're just gonna do this fucking ritual, essentially hypnosis, and we're gonna stick it down in there, and it's gonna manifest eventually. And that's how occult magic works. That's the secret of occult magic, and that's the one thing I really saw that Aleister Crowley has put it like in the most literal and easiest sense, and still people can't get it. Like it's a but if you go into any occult tradition, they're slowly teaching you this, you go into the neophyte and the earth grade, and there's different schools, mystery schools and whatnot, but they're all basically trying to explain the same principles. And one of those things is how to manifest something. And I guess you could call propaganda is the modern black magic, so to speak. So because you're putting something into other people, and how you're putting it in there is you have to appeal to their good side, their love, what they value and love, and you're sticking stuff basically there to get them to eventually manifest. You need it down into that where they connect that love energy into it to be able to bring things into manifestation. Like the biggest thing is like, look what they were doing with the corona. Like, I mean, like, you don't want to kill grandma. You don't want to keep people safe, stuff like that. Appealing to people's good nature, that love that's underneath them is how they were. If you noticed, it was how they were bringing all that shit into manifestation. They couldn't have done it without the good in people's hearts. And that's another thing. If you realize, you can have a little more compassion for people as well, because
The sacred feminine, if you will, right?
in a sense. But I would say this is even beyond the masculine. Love is beyond the duality. It's beyond masculine and feminine. It's the foundation to everything.
Would you say you
And
could look at it as what connects us all? Because if we are,
yes, yeah,
we're all connected anyway. Physical, not so the physical is an illusion. But even if you looked at the physical the right way, you'd see that we're all connected because I'm connected to certain molecules of air that are connected to another person. So we're all touching each other. So we're all connected. We're all one. Therefore, isn't love just an expression of oneness, right? In a way?
exactly. Yes, that's what I'm partly what I'm trying to articulate. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
If we stick with Crowley for a minute,
Yeah.
I always had a problem with the term love. And there are the 8 lectures on yoga that Crowley gave. It's short text, very pronounced, cheeky as always, and a lot of insight, I guess. I mean, I'm no yogi by all means. I got a bit of insight, but no, not by all means. But it seemed credible from what I read and from what I experienced myself. And he said simply, yeah, love is the notion of unity for everything. And that just stuck with me. I mean, Crowley was despicable, I guess, but he understood what he was talking about. So
Yeah, he knew his shit. I'm not
yeah,
debating that.
he really. I mean, you have to know your shit in order to form it into something very crazy that people don't understand. You know? This is really, but yeah, unity, love being unity, being the unifying principle. I don't know.
Yeah, and people confuse love with like an emotion. That's the kind of issue because everybody has like this concept when they think of love to be like this emotion, but it's not an emotion. Actually it brings about motion. Like when you experience it, when that energy, like when you get into meditation, it depends on your state of mind that day of how what emotions are going to arise. Sometimes it makes you sad, like and you cry, and then when you cry, you're at peace. And sometimes you feel joy and ecstasy. It really depends. Like but it's not an emotion. It's a field of energy, the unifying thing that like Brandon or you were just talking about. That's what it is, and that's kind of the issue I see when you try to tell people love, 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 because they don't. Yeah, their mind goes right to like an emotion, like it's a very surface level.
Sounds very new age, hippy dippy. When what we're talking about is just provable. We are all connected.
Or love can make you angry. Love can make you shoot somebody. So that came to my mind, and this will probably segue later.
Yeah.
Like love can make you act violent. Like it's unpredictable, but it's like it's the unifying energy that's trying to keep everything unified, I guess, to keep everything in balance, so to speak. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
try
think
to
we can hit it
articulate it.
home
But
with that.
yeah.
Really, is if we really work this out, that love. I when things are too complex for me, then I go tribal. I go stone age caveman, and then I can understand everything a bit better. And what you said is so good. Um, yeah, it keeps the tribe together.
Mm.
Somebody wants to break apart a marital bond or whatever, kill him. He's breaking apart the unity. You know, there's other people. Like they want to come and take the resources. Oh, we have to kill him for sake of love for our people. You know, love. What I want to say is like love is not a nice thing. We. I might be wrong when I say this. Maybe that's a big deception that we are told that love, is lovey-dovey, is a nice thing. I think love is very hard, very can be very cruel, very
It can be.
destructive for the sake of the better good or the greater good.
It can be, and that's why it's like why there's warnings about occult magic and stuff like that. You don't want to like haphazardly stick something down into that love because you don't know how it's going to play out. Um,
It's like be
um,
careful what you wish for, right?
yeah, yeah, totally. Be careful what you wish for. And I'm gonna hand it over to you guys for there's something I'm trying to articulate, but I don't know how to say it just right.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to quickly just give some shout outs to the chat. Shout out to Sharon, as always. It's great to have you in here. Speedy Lee, Sarcastic Warlock, Zerlath is in there earlier. Tony Coriolis, what's going on, everybody? Thank you. And Sarcastic said, what is love, baby? Don't hurt me. And he put some quotes in here. There can be no rape without love. And that's from Crowley. And then also from Crowley, above the gemmed azure is the naked splendor of Newt. She bends in ecstasy to kiss the secret adorers of Hadit, the winged globe, the starry blue are mine. I hope I said all that right. Yeah, exactly. And you know what I think I was gonna say too, about this love thing. Like so many other words, people have different definitions, and I think when they're talking, they get in arguments because one person has one definition of love and another person has another definition. And a term that I heard that I like is agape. I guess it's like a Greek term, right, for love. And do you know more about this, Jeff? Because maybe you could define it better.
Sorry, I cannot. But it's
Uh,
yeah,
I
in
think it's just
Philema, right?
connecting love,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, the
Philema,
connecting love that we're talking
agape.
about. Yeah, yeah. So the Greeks had different words for different types of love. I remember Sharon sent me some stuff on that. And we've talked about it in the past. So very interesting, though.
I
And
will look
now,
it up.
okay, yeah, yeah. And I like, so I want to take what Joe was saying about how it's done and then kind of get into some areas where people might not realize that it's overt propaganda. You know, because like we said before, people think about products or they might even think about some kind of government propaganda when it comes to war and stuff. But what about propaganda when it comes to scarcity of resources? What if like it's been shown oil can actually regenerate and there really is not a shortage of it? Maybe there is, but I could at least say you can go back and see articles from the early 1900s, even late 1800s, where they were saying that we're at peak oil. We're going to run out of oil any day now. We're going to run out of oil. So it's another one of these propaganda things, right? That they've been running for over 100 years, scaring people. And if you ask the average person, they're going to think that we're running out of oil. What do you got there? Thomas Gold.
This is a German version, but yeah, just to find
Oh,
Thomas
right.
Gold is exactly what you say.
Oh,
Oil.
okay. Yeah, yeah, right. So, or you can even look at NASA. And Joe and I have had some very interesting conversations lately about space or what it could be or what it is. But I'll tell you one thing, if you look with your own naked eye through a telescope at the sky, it's not what you see with these images from NASA. We get this word image. What even is an image? It's not a picture. It's different. You should look it up yourselves, guys, because an image is not what you think. But anyway, so what are they trying to build in our minds? And then you look at like what happened with the moon landings, and it's just, you know, um, I could see people believe it because they want to, but if you or just have a clear objective mind, like if you were a 5-year-old and you looked at that, you'd be like, "What? A total vacuum? Like they're driving a golf, they're driving a cart that's got tires in a vacuum." Anyway, so what's going on there? Is that part of this crazy propaganda? And if so, what could this mean about space and why would they be doing this with space? Why would they be giving us this hope? All these types of things. These are things that Joe and I talk about, but maybe we could bring it into that realm.
Yeah, I have a contribution with that. Propaganda, with space, our belief system, and all. One of the definitions for propaganda, I won't find it now, the page. It's from the Catholic Church. They had I guess, a college of propaganda for the missionaries. And if it's a Catholic word and for putting out the Catholic faith and all into the world, not the Christian. Catholics are not Christians, in my opinion.
How dare you?
How
I
dare
can concur. I grew up in a Catholic church and I also went to a born again, would you would say Christian church. So yes, you're right. They're not the same thing.
it's different?
Just
Yeah, who's a
use some of
Christian?
the same words and characters. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, everything I say must take with a few grains of salt. So But really, when we think about all that, or the picture of the world that we have, I tried for a few years now to go beyond the Christian worldview, for example. And I catch myself again and again that there are like fail safes programmed into me.
Hmm.
Like, I highly I reject Christ. I highly do reject Christ as the God, the flesh God that comes down and is our Messiah. And I catch myself when I do that there's a fear coming up inside of me. Oh, I might be judged or whatever, you know? And then of course this is the genius of all these systems that are being put in place, because we cannot discern, is this the fear of God or is this a very genius or ingenious programming? Like with Dune, the Bene Gesserit, they Paul Muad'Dib is not the only Messiah. We must understand that there are many messiahs. In every family there's a messiah, a potential messiah. And in every world, every culture, every tribe, there is a Reverend Mother, and they all put out that notion of the Messiah, so that when the time is right and the constellations are fitting, they can have a Messiah. They don't know what the Messiah is. They themselves are just in the dark. So the thing is really, I think, with the propaganda, because we think it's all about Coca-Cola and going to war. But the term propaganda is a Catholic term, and it's so interesting that we seldomly go beyond the Christian worldview. Even like see Crowley. Crowley was a Christian, deeply Christian. He was the anti, or like an antichrist. He was the beast. This is a Christian term. So the thing is, like, can we go beyond propaganda? What is beyond propaganda? Is there damnation? I mean, we're all alone. We if we go beyond propaganda, beyond everything that we learned that is right and true, then we are outcast. We are alone in the world. We're not a social being anymore. Then question everything. We become a truther, the worst of the worst.
Right in so many ways.
I'm joking. Everybody
No.
hates truthers. Even other truthers hate truthers.
That's oh, dude, that's such a good quote right there.
Because I'm not for the flat Earth. I'm for a cubular Earth. It's a cube with 6 different planes, and I can prove it.
I thought you were gonna say you're for Cuban Earth, and I was like, I'm fucking down, bro. Let's do it.
Like a cigar shape, right?
Man.
Yeah, there you go. Whatever it is, as long as we can have Cuban stuff, I'm happy. We got some really cool comments on here in the chat. So Sarcastic said, what you were talking about earlier, Joe. That's what Joe was talking about. A real wizard is capable of choosing what he wants to believe, hiding his own Easter eggs, as it were, so he is his own propagandist.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it is. It's self-propaganda. Propaganda, I guess you just say black magic on a collective, targeted towards a collective versus an individual. But the same principles that you would program yourself would be the same that we would call propaganda to program a group of people. It's the same principles, same thing, just on a bigger scale. And the bigger the scale, also, it's like the harder you can manifest it 100% correctly as well. All right, so I was taking some notes. I'm trying to articulate something that's really hard to fucking articulate. We were talking about love, right? And there's an overall structure that's based on certain logic, that's based on certain principles, call it natural law, whatever, certain principles make up structure. And there's this overall structure, and we'll use just the individual, for example. You have a structure that you call your consciousness, or your human consciousness, your experience. It has a certain structure. We've been doing this series on Jungian psychology, Brandon, Sharon, and I, if you want to go check that out. That's one way to tackle it. But there's an overall structure of your consciousness, and like you're finite. There's only so much like you as a human being can experience before it becomes complete total chaos. Um, so your consciousness is pretty much organized structure of duality, more or less, dualistic kind of principles. So, but Drew, to use a metaphor, Drew, like if you think of like the black and white checkered thing, it's a little more complex than that, but for this metaphor, um, the love, it would be coming through the white spots, and the black spots would be the things that are preventing you from love. So basically fear, or things derived off of fear. So but everybody's always trying to seek that feeling of love, because everybody's experienced. I think even a serial killer at some point probably experienced a glimpse of it. Like, but I experience it on a day-to-day basis, especially the older I get. It just becomes easier. I feel lighter. I have more moments where it just comes about, where it comes to the surface. And it's not that love is it's beyond duality. It has no duality. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make. But the structure, in order to have a structure, you need duality. Duality is needed to form a structure that's based on the, like the seven hermetic principles, so to speak. It's part of the overall structure. You can't have structure without it. So there's duality, and that's how we have having our experience. But there's this love that's underneath it, that is unifying everything together. And the issue is that there is a structure that was not created by a limited mind, hence us human beings, uh, who have a very finite understanding of the totality, or we wouldn't be able to have an experience. So um, it's learning to get things through that structure and through those like putting stuff into those white tiles, so to speak, or playing off the black tiles to have the opposite reaction. Because, oh shit, like Jeff was saying earlier, I might go to hell or something like that. Like, so I don't want to go to hell. I want to experience love. Everybody's trying to experience love, trying to experience that unified feeling. So you're like, all right, I can't get there. I mean, you're not rationally thinking about it, it's feeling. But it, like immediately, like when somebody's targeting that black fucking square, so to speak, that black tile, like it's they're having a reaction because they want to get back to love, so to speak. And I already see a lot of like the holes, but this is a very hard thing to articulate. This is a very hard thing to understand. And I don't think it could come through study, personally. Like, I don't think I could have got any of this through study. Like, this is, you have to kind of be trying to experience things, which is another reason I had never understood why people got into the occult and they just want to read nonstop books and interpretations, more books, more interpretations, and to collect all this shit, when the actual occult principles are very simple to understand and you can use them to do stuff. I don't know. Me personally, I don't know why you would get into the occult if you weren't going to actually like play around with some of this stuff to figure out if it works or what is true and whatnot. So yeah, that's just maybe the way I work, um, but yeah, if maybe I'll let you guys take over and I could jump off and maybe clarify as we go. So
Sure. Well, I just want to throw in really quickly, and then I'll let Jeff speak on that if he wants. But something that the three of us might understand because of the stuff we've done in our lives and the study and all that stuff. And I love what you said, Joe, totally about knowing. You have to get a knowing. To get a true knowing, you have to experience things. Like Adam knew Eve, as we love to say in the Oversharing show. And Adam knew Eve. How do you know her? Because he knew her. You know, he knew they should have got a room. But anyway, so you got to get to know things. But what I wanted to say, something that three of us might understand, is that this feeling of love that people, or that you get, we're kind of raised in a society to get that. We're taught that we have to get that love from somebody else, and in order to feel that feeling, we have to find someone else who feels the same way that we feel about them, and we love each other, and then we can feel that feeling. But through some of these spiritual practices, and like Joe was saying, you meditate, you slow down, you get to feel that love, you start to realize that you can get your own love from yourself, from God, wherever it comes from. And you don't need to be dependent on another person for it. Now, yes, it's great to find another person and fall in love, whatever the hell that means after what we've been talking about, and share your life and that stuff. But this feeling of love though that you get, there's no, again, we go back to the scarcity. There's no scarcity of this love. The scarcity is only the limit you're putting on it yourself because of all the propaganda that we've been going through. So after you think about that from that lens, so think about what Joe said, from that lens, like this feeling, you don't need another person, you don't need validation from an exterior source, right? But what do you think of, unless Joe's got something?
No, good job.
Yeah, the validation from other people. I don't know,
Speaking of
man.
propaganda, right? Yeah.
The validation, I don't know. As I have grown beyond validation because I failed so much in society that I had to let it go in order to enjoy myself. And yeah, the individual. I I had a thought some time ago, and I would like to voice that out. It fits that topic right now. Um, Love is a unifying thing, and the masses, what keeps them or holds the masses together is maybe propaganda, maybe a work of love.
Yeah.
Um, but what about the individual then? I thought about that. We always are told in the I dare not to say I dare not to say Christian mindset because for me, true Christian is a Muslim. Gotcha. No, like the Catholic mindset or the Catholic worldview, that the mainstream Christian worldview, Protestant and all as well. The devil is the one who separated himself from God's command and the love of God, whatever, and he's the fallen one. And we say the Satanists, they are the ones who are they only want to do what they want, fuck society, go against everything that society ingrains in us, and like the left-hand path, do the nasty stuff. But I'm not so sure about that. Um, when we look at Jung, for example, and this is my question to you guys, um, Jung speaks about the individuation, becoming an individual, right? Isn't that
Well,
the
it's
worst thing then? Isn't that becoming an individual means we cannot be split apart anymore? We are the smallest unit already. And that means we are not many. The individual is not many. So the individual would be the epiphany of anti-propaganda and evil in the Christian worldview, right?
yeah.
If you love yourself only, love is unifying, right? If you love only yourself, and if you get all the love from yourself, you're a devil, right?
Yeah, there's going
There
to
you
be not
go.
some nice, not so nice things that are going to come about from that by putting all your stock in love in that sense. But yeah, um,
I don't know. I mean, I think
yeah,
it's like really. Um, oh man, who's the guy? I have to look it up for our next conversation. Um, No, I cannot recall everything. But becoming just one person and becoming egocentric, egotistical. I don't know. It's so beautiful. This is like really. I mean, it doesn't mean that say fuck everybody, but if I'm not dependent on the judgment of other people, I'm not susceptible to propaganda anymore, and I have at least a chance to see a world beyond propaganda. Maybe the propaganda is truth. Maybe the Christian worldview is truth. Jesus will come, when the Jews slaughter the red heifer and destroy the Muslim mosque and whatever, and then we are all living in peace, the 1,000-year Reich like Hitler wanted. It's the same thought, it's the same thought, it's just so maybe when we become an individual and we let everything fall and we say fuck it all, fuck everybody else, you know maybe then we can see the truth only. I don't know. Isn't that what the Buddha did, or Jesus as well? Didn't he? I don't know. I'm not a Christian in that sense. This is my question. You know.
Well, that's what I was going to say when you were talking about this, because I feel like when you get to a certain point and you have that epiphany and you're like, fuck it, fuck everything, you kind of die, right? It's like an ego death. And then whatever comes back is what's reborn. And most of the time, you do have this love or love for yourself, but it's not like a selfish, terrible love that people would say. It's more like you are the singular, but then you could see the unity too when you turn around. So you kind of become like Neo in the Matrix, right? And at that point,
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't have to fuck with other people in order to love myself. I don't have to rage and fight, and because I'm like, yeah, it's all right. You guys do yours, you do you, I do me. It's all right, then I'm in tune. And that's the counterintuitive thing. So maybe this is escaping propaganda. I don't know. I'm not there yet, so I cannot say. I'm full
No,
of fear, you know. Maybe Jesus will judge me. I mean, have you seen what Jesus wanted to do to the people when he comes back? Man, I don't want that to happen to me.
or if you escape the propaganda, is it possible that you're just in a blank space like Bugs Bunny when he runs off the cartoon and they have to draw stuff for him? Or, like Rick and Morty in that episode where they're like taken by the aliens and they're in this reality creation machine and they're able to freeze it and get away. But is that what happens if we get too much away from the propaganda? Or do we just see the world through our own lens and what we think it's going to be? And if that's the case, if it's a magical lens where you're not a victim and you're a victor, I mean, the possibilities are endless. You could become the president if you wanted to with that whole mindset. I'm not saying you want to do that. I'm just saying, for example, I mean, maybe that's how people become rock stars or famous, because not everybody that's famous is evil. There's some good one. I mean, Roger Waters seems like a pretty good dude, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is so different from what people thought we would talk about.
yeah. Well, propaganda is a lot more complex than what people think it is. Yeah. We're kind of laying a foundation, I think.
I think propaganda is so necessary for the human experience that we tell each other stories and give each other mythology and all. I guess so, because we love other people's mythology. We love Lord of the Rings and Cthulhu and Conan and Star Wars and all. We want it to be true. We want to be the Jedi or whatever, And then we sit there. Come on, man. Nobody who's a real Star Wars fan cannot tell me that they haven't tried to be a Jedi in some sense to move the bottle from the other side of the table with the force of the head, and it works, but only if you sit with other people. And dare you try it. It will always work. You only have to sit long enough like this, and that bottle will move to your hand, and you will not have to touch it. But we want we want other people to tell us what the world is like, and we want a better version than the one that we found. Don't you think?
Mhm.
Because maybe life is really grim. Maybe we would have to become a beast and a god when we are all by ourselves. And then we would have, I mean, come on, man. I think all of us have been tripping so heavily that we lost contact. I mean, I have, and then I was in the darkness, and then I understood, shit, I fucked it up. I don't know how to recreate this world. This will take me eons how to figure out how I did that. Shit, man, I fucked it up. I want that world back. When that trip ended, I was so glad. I was so glad that I'm on this island world and I only get to be one person at a time and don't have to figure everything out. I just can go with the flow. That was
Yeah.
such a blessing, man.
Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. I didn't experience that in my mushroom trip. My mushroom trips were just a little more cruel. But like um I've had times where I remember staying out looking out my window one time listening to the Autobahn, and the exact thing you just described, that same thought came to me when I realized the totality of everything and how much complexity and how much was set into motion to bring about me staying at this fucking window right now. Like it's absolutely insane. And um yeah, um yeah, so pretty much the structure of this fucking world, like I was trying to explain earlier. I'm trying to think of a good metaphor. Like think of like a river, how they like will put a dam in a river or something like that, or you know, route the river somewhere else, like using certain structure. And now the river to love is following that new structure that was created for the river, that's going to change how the river flows, and it's going to change everything around it. um,
Mhm.
that's kind of how I see propaganda, or mind control or self-programming or any of those kind of things. Is there's already this structure that's been built up over eons through things that were, um, say, guided by, I don't know what to call it, the higher mind, God, whatever, or was guided by a limited mind. And that's the issue when you're trying to. I also agree that propaganda is very necessary in this world. I'm not making a claim that it's bad, like it's beyond good or bad. Like it's just a thing. It just is, and it's um, very important because there's all these things that are set into motion that are eventually, the tracks haven't been finished. That train's going to go off the fucking tracks at some point, you know? And like, so is propaganda in some ways is kind of necessary to keep everything going, to reshape the river, so to speak, to, so that it, like, it's, yeah, I'm getting lost in too many metaphors, but I hope any of that made sense. So,
It
Oh yeah.
reminds me. It reminds me of when we were talking about the Jewish doctrine in the broadest sense, the crystallizing a society in the world with all the mitzvah and all this Mishnah, whatever, these laws. The more laws we have, you know, that's that same with Sunni Islam. You know, it's a backwards Islam. It's we want to be frozen in the times of the Prophet because that's a stable time, and we are happy that there's something stable. You know, we hold on, we keep holding on to that stability, no matter how much blood we have to shed. You know, if they want to destroy our unity, we gonna fuck them up. Don't you think? It reminded me of that back then. It was a long conversation that we had with the crystallizing through law.
hmm.
You know, and something that when you were talking, Joe, I was thinking because you were saying, you know, so certain propaganda is out there because there's like a train that's about to go off a cliff, so you need propaganda to make that not happen in society. And then you were talking about a river being shaped in propaganda would be the structure that's laid down in the mind for the future. Now, what do you think about all that in regards to like NASA and space? You know, like how let's colonize Mars and let's move forward. I know we've had discussions about this in the past, but what's your take on all that stuff? Because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, well, I guess I could preface that I don't know what the fuck they're doing in space. There's
Yeah,
an element of truth to the mainstream, but they're obviously in certain areas not being truthful. Maybe they don't even know the truth. Who fucking knows? But um, I was thinking at some point, and somebody, this is a thought process that came up from somebody else's theory. I think it was from Matt from Quantum Conscience. Was thinking maybe they're manifesting space. Maybe that's why they're putting all these ideas, because space is to a certain extent void and waiting to be crafted, waiting to have a structure put in there. So it could be very possible to that over time they're building space, literally building it. And they're actually sending rockets and doing these experiments and getting results. They get results, truthers. But
They do, yeah.
so but there is some weird shit going on. So it's like, are they like slowly building it like through the consciousness of the entire fucking world and slowly testing to see, is there something there now? Is there something there now? Like, is that what's going on? I don't know. But like, um but yeah, I've also I've had the thought, and I think that's more what Brandon was alluding to, is that maybe, just maybe, they're um telling everybody about the space thing to just keep them going, to give them something to get out of bed. Like, we're gonna go to space, some guys, we're gonna colonize Mars, we're gonna blah blah blah, and it just keeps people going. Like, there's something to look forward to, just something to continue dreaming about. Like, it could be a mixture of both of those theories. It could be neither one of them. So, like, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know. All I know is there's some truth to the mainstream thing, and but there's certain things that truthers have come up with that are valid things to consider. So yeah, I don't know what they're doing ultimately. I just I have my map currently that is could change tomorrow, but I ultimately don't know. It's just speculation.
I just want to throw this in quickly. We probably shouldn't comment on it, but just imagine, you know, we were saying about these people in NASA and what if they are creating space? So these same guys, though, allegedly came from another place, you know, World War II. They were on the other side, allegedly. I wonder what they were working toward there. You know, I just could just imagine the utopia, whatever, or a magical place we might have that they were trying to work toward, right? But it's fine. Everybody would get it. If they're evil, let's not talk about that. No, but yeah, I love what you said about that. Maybe they are creating space, man. You know, that would be pretty crazy because but it makes sense in my worldview. It really does, because I really think it is all in the mind. And if they could, and this is the thing, so maybe they can't actually create space or whatever the heck it is, or we don't know. But if they're concentrated on that, it draws so much energy and it draws so many people's attention because it's such a great feat if we could do that, that it does keep everybody laser focused on it, you know? So, I mean, really, who knows what they're doing with that energy? Maybe they found another way to harness it or whatever. But yeah, pretty mind blowing.
At the point at this, if you guys are waiting on me, I don't have nothing to add at the moment. So
I don't mind a comfortable silence.
I'm, I'm I'm really thinking if this is a good point to show the basic plot of Warhammer 40K as an extension to that thought. I don't know, man. It's just another can opened.
We definitely got to talk about it. If not now, maybe in the future, because I think it is all related. And, you know, for our discussions going forward, though, I'm sure they're going to build upon each other. So even propaganda, we could, you know, expand upon it further and even call it something else, you know, with
I,
those.
I think I think I can make it really, really, really short
Yeah.
without crippling it too much, without butchering it too much. So yeah, Warhammer 40K. There's different races. The war with the machines already happened. There's always the war with the machines. It's intergalactic. There is
This
a
is a video game, right? But there's an actual world behind it, and that's what you're talking about, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's like this tabletop thing where you paint the miniatures and all. And so there's this guy, omnipotent. He's perpetual. He lives forever and whatever. He can do whatever. And he becomes the god emperor of mankind. And he conquers all other worlds, and he tries to conquer all the other worlds with his super warriors, whatever. And basically, he wants to unite humanity. And in there's a very crucial part about that that's deeply, deeply. I think it's an expression of chaos magic, very deeply, and it shows the necessity of propaganda. Humans in that universe, they all have this creative power. They are psychics. Every human is a bit psychic. And those who are really, really psychic, demons come through and all and wreak havoc. So the God Emperor, he forbids everybody to have a religion. He kills all the religions. He kills everybody who has a religion and all, and he says like there's can be no religion because humans, when there's a certain mass, they will create all this. And there's this world beyond called the warp, and it's basically before humans it was peaceful. It's a big lore and everything, but at the times of humans, they are they're gods, chaos gods, you know, corn, this carnage and anger and everything, and different ones, and humans are fueling them. So the God Emperor, with his propaganda and his reinforcement, he wants to keep people from having their beliefs and believing in these entities because they are creating it. And of course, it goes sideways and it rips open, and all this, brothers against brothers, the super warriors fighting all these things. It's crazy. But the thing is that humans are fueling the gods. It goes into the principles of the egregore, the gods or the god images, god creatures that we create that have certain capabilities and all. And I think this is a really good analogy, a really good story to dive into, to explore this thought of us creating the world around us creating other entities, creating space, giving it a story that we all can follow, maybe. Yeah. It goes too far away from the topic, but what I wanted to say is that notion of us creating, everybody creating, and smart people harnessing that, or even forbidding other people to create. You know, people shall not have another god beside God, and all. It's all these things.
Is that
So
not okay? Is
yeah,
that not is that not why at the at our unconscious level, maybe why we freak the fuck out when somebody has a different worldview or has a different idea, or on and on and on, because we want to manifest something, and on a level we know we need them on board to bring about what we need. You know what I mean? So it kind of would even be a logical reaction in a sense to kind of be like why you would be upset if somebody had a different worldview, or on and on and on, because it's like, motherfucker, you're manifesting this and it's going to go against my, that kind of deal. Part of me thinks that something like that is going on an unconscious kind of level. So
Yeah, like a primal thing. I like that. And it reminds me of what Jesus was supposed to have said, like when two or more are gathered in my name, or three or more are gathered in my name, or something, I'll be there. Gives you the power of, multiplication when you're when you're starting to create. And yeah, that's stuff that you were talking about, Jeff. We could definitely expand upon that and use that as a backdrop for our discussions, because it really is amazing, because you get the idea of the egregore in there, things created in society. And I think it's important to remember to go back to what we said earlier, and you said it too. We don't see everything. There's this world out there, but we're not seeing everything. There might be Bigfoots hiding behind the trees, or when you're speaking, or when there's a bunch of people believing something, there might be something that goes up above them and connects, and you see this like in the sky, this giant egregore that they're creating, which is like a god that's going to go battle other gods. And you can even look at that like allegorically, but from a spiritual point of view, I could totally see that.
Do you think the gods need us?
Yeah, because I think we're aspects of the gods. We're pieces of the gods. So that's probably, if you take the idea of we're just all little pieces of God. So then when a bunch of us get together and we have the same will and intention and all that stuff, then we could create part of God kind of, or we could manifest using that power of God. But I feel like you could do on an individual level too, but maybe it's just the changes that you have to make inside in your own internal world, and then for them to see them out in the world, it's just better when you have more people on board. It makes a lot more sense, especially how some of these people get famous, like internet famous and stuff. It's really crazy. You hear some of these stories, um how'd you meet this guy or whatever, and it's just the synchronicities involved alone are crazy. So it makes me feel that we do pull toward us what we need and what we want. But that whole idea of fragments of God, I think that's close to it as well.
Yeah, I think it's so primitive. Like not what you said, but this notion. Sorry, man.
Oh, I know what
No, this notion of that we have it so deeply ingrained in us that we enjoy, need, love, to pray to another entity, something that's bigger than us, and it's always powerful, you know. This is, yeah, I don't know, this Jungian thing. It really comes back to this question: is it, do we need do we need to manifest together, or can the individual unlock something and create an own world? Is this even something that we want? Is Jesus the one who creates his own world, or is he an avatar? Yeah, I don't know. It's this incoherent what I'm saying, but it's just, like the thoughts forming.
Or maybe like I was saying before, it when you go through that moment, that's when you can emerge back in and everything's all right. But then you could be an individual when you need to be, and then you could just kind of merge in when you need to as well. But I believe that's kind of stuff that will keep you safe, in a any kind of disaster or something that's going on, or something's going wrong, or anything you see out there. If you could individuate from the people around you and not feel the fear, I think you'll be just fine. I feel like that's how this realm works. I think that things can't interact with you unless you let them in. It's like the vampire. He can only come in your house if you invite him in. And I feel in that same way that things that might happen or whatever it is, even if the earth ripped open, I feel like there's things you hear in the Bible, that's kind of where that comes from. Like Lot escaping Sodom and Gomorrah, and then Sarah turning around and turning into a pillar of salt. I think that's not all just allegory, I feel like, but who knows? But like you were saying with the fear, it connects, because if you could turn that fear, I like what you're saying with the black and white squares. That's perfect. And maybe that's why they use it in the masonry so much with black and white squares. I mean, of course, it has so many meanings, but if you take this symbol and use it to what Joe was saying with the white squares are love and the black squares are fear, if you could flip more of those squares to the white, then I feel like you'll just basically have a bridge out of whatever you need. You'll be fine. You won't be in ignorance anymore, right? With the black and white.
Well, this is the thing, and with quote unquote enlightenment, I'm making the claim I experienced enlightenment. It might have only been 5 fucking minutes in earthly time, but it was enough. The one thing I can say is the individual completely fucking disappears. You're just as much as important as the fucking grass or the birds or anything else. There is a intense feeling of, think of the most love you've ever experienced. I don't know, for your wife or your kid or whatever, and just amplify that by fucking 10. And then it's like everything seems to be, not only do you feel that, but it seems like everything's made of it. Like, and that's the thing. If you got rid of all the black squares, you'd be enlightened, but you also would never not be human anymore. There would not be a human structure anymore. You just
You wouldn't
that
even
cease.
care.
You shed that snake skin, so to speak. It's
Yeah,
the best
right.
way I can put it. Like
You would be
but
angelic. You would
um,
not be a human. Yeah, you'd
no,
be an
you
angel,
wouldn't be.
right?
You wouldn't be a human. You wouldn't be a local. Like we're experiencing. I'm sitting here in this room in Regensburg right now, in this room, and I have an experience that I'm sitting here, and there's everything else outside of me. That boundary disappeared. Like and from what I understand, from what the structure that you experience when you, as a human, as an individual, is like I said with the metaphor with the black and white squares. There's like the structure. There's certain black points and certain white points, and it's all coming together to form the overall structure of you. You guys still there?
Oh yeah. I'm
Yep,
just
yep.
Oh,
I'm looking at the chat and just like
oh,
absorbing what you're saying.
oh, I look like both of you were frozen. I'm like, not again.
We're like C3PO. We're just like confused.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, no, I love what you're saying about that stuff, and it's really, this is, I feel like, taking us to the next level. Maybe we should kind of start winding down here. We've been going for almost an hour and a half, but give some people some things to digest and stuff. And then when we return next time, we can kind of even pick up here a little bit, but we can even have a different topic. But I mean, this, from this spot right here, we could basically go anywhere. What Joe's describing has been called like samadhi in Hindu religion. It's this, I don't think I've experienced it myself, but maybe like on mushrooms, it kind of gets close a little bit. But this oneness, and like you were saying, if you want to stay there, do you stay there, or do you come back here? Do you still maybe have more work to do, or what is it, or is it the fear that brings you back? But maybe it's a good thing, right? Like you said, you don't, who knows? There's still things,
Yes.
we need more podcasts from Joe, so we can't have him go turn into an angel on us.
Yeah, and that's the thing with from what I understand about spiritual growth at this point and your experience is that um each jump you make in you want to call it spirituality is you overcome a dualism. Like there's this dualistic thing you have going on in your worldview, in your paradigm, and you see both sides, and then all of a sudden it dissolves because you stand above it. You're walking on the tile floor, so to speak. And so it's like each jump is overcoming a different duality, and we have the human consciousness has so many fucking dualities, like so many dualities to overcome. It's like it seems to never fucking end. But but it's that those dualities that are giving structure to this realm and giving structure to you and to have this human experience. And it is that structure to which the propagandist will hack to bring things up into manifestation. Or if you wanted to do that to yourself, it doesn't have to be thinking in terms of propaganda and doing it to a mass of people like we were talking about earlier. It's you do it to yourself too. You use the same principles to hack your consciousness to bring things about. And here's the thing: you can manifest the house like I did back when I fucking was messing with this, or you can manifest yourself overcoming the next duality. So it's really all about a choice of what you want to manifest. So like, but really the skies are the limit. I wouldn't say that because there are certain rules to this structure that we call Earth. There are certain, what laws, however you want to, principles, however you want to call it. So even though you are manifesting something, it doesn't play out the way you think it's going to play out because there's so many variables, so many things coming together to bring you to that point where it quote unquote manifested, which is I don't even think manifest is the right fucking word, to be honest. It's more of a
Create, maybe, you know.
yeah, create or being magnetically pulled to
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it, but I don't even think manifesting is the right word. But I don't have the right word at the moment. But yeah,
Well,
anyway.
basically, what you're doing is you're just taking a bunch of possibilities and putting them in the favor that you want. There's like a bunch of potentials out there, and you're just going 1 0 1 0 1 0 because I want a house. You know, like
Yeah.
too deep now. I think a good rule for that is like the golden rule. You know, you can follow the golden rule. Joel Goldsmith talks about that when he talks about manifesting and stuff, and that might be a good guy. But really, I think just follow your conscience, the inner voice inside. It'll let you know. Just keep, like I was saying, I did this, check my little live stream out I did earlier, guys, like about 25 minutes or 7 minutes, right on this channel. I talked about just stay focused on what you're grateful for. What do you have gratitude
Mm,
for? If you put your energy into what you're grateful for, then what you're grateful for will expand. It just makes sense. Human
mm,
attention is one of the most valuable things. If you can keep it on that, then I think it's at least a good starting point.
yeah.
So
And uh, I wanted to talk about ICP before we get off this stream because it's so fucking cool to me. Um,
yeah, go
um,
ahead.
we're all a essentially a product of all the propaganda that was set into motion hundreds of years ago or set into motion in your own lifetime because we're getting programmed all the fucking time, like all the time. And to an extent you can never even like completely block it, like because you're, I mean, if you're conscious of certain things it can't get in. That's the same way why you do a certain magical rituals, because you're trying to get rid of that block, that conscious block. You're trying to get into the unconscious, so you're sneaking it in through a ritual, through a trance, essentially. um but we're a product of our propaganda, and even all right, I'm a product of probably one of the coolest propaganda campaigns in human history as far as I'm fucking concerned. And I am a product, and possibly even Brandon,
Yeah.
and or possibly lots of us out there. There is this. Has anybody heard of the Insane Clown Posse? It's and mostly only Americans know about it, and it's usually like the most outcast misfit kind of young adults or like teenagers that get into like ICP, at least back in the day. And now I had a very dark fucking childhood, a really, really dark fucking childhood. I was in a really bad place, and I don't know how a friend of mine introduced me to ICP. And for those of you who don't know about ICP, you think gangster rap is bad. ICP does a genre called horrorcore, where it's kind of
Yeah.
cartoony and comicky in a sense, but it's incredibly violent and incredibly lots of sex, the bottom of the barrel of the human experience. And they horrorcore is like a rap style that takes like the worst of the worst and kind of makes it into like this cartoony kind of story. And so I used to listen to ICP because back in the day I used to resonate when I heard it. Not only was it was really good music because it's like some of the best rap beats out there. It brings you into hypnosis, like really
Yeah.
fucking quick. Rap music in general does, but
Yeah.
th- they did it really fucking well. And they used to rap about murdering people with axes, people like murdering like people that like we wouldn't like, people that I didn't like back then, like abusive fucking dads and corrupt judges and rich misers and all these people I couldn't stand back then when I hated the fucking world. And I really fucking hated the world back then. And I used to listen to ICP all the fucking time, hours a day, hours and hours and hours every fucking day. Um, just to show you how deep the shit's in my unconscious mind. When I when the light bulb went off a few days ago when I was thinking about this propaganda fucking thing, and all of a sudden this popped into my mind. Like, uh, yeah, to this day, there's a song called Piggy Pie that's on the Great Malenko that I have not listened to since I was 16 years old. And I played it the other day just for shits and giggles. And I can recite it from front to back, a
Yeah.
hundred fucking percent. Like to this fucking day, 20 years later, that's how much is burned into my fucking psychology. And, like I even remember I was telling Brandon, and like even in like the army and basic training, like you have to do fire guard.
Yeah.
For people who are not in the military, fire guards like when you have to stay up all night for a certain amount of hours while everybody else sleeps, and you just sit there with a fucking flashlight, because they're training you to like if, when you go to war or whatever, like in the movie Platoon, somebody has to stay awake like
Yeah.
while
See Full
everybody
Metal
sleeps.
Jacket for that, for what
Yeah.
Firewatch is or
Oh
Fire.
yeah, yeah. True that. Yeah. So yeah, I used to be on fire guard and I used to sit there half asleep at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning reciting ICP rhymes because they were so deeply ingrained into my consciousness. Now, where am I going with this? Is okay, the story of ICP. I, ICP was these two guys, Violent J and Shaggy Two Dope, and their producer and beat maker Mike Clark. And they came up with this scheme back in the early 90s that okay, we know all this like propaganda, how they mind control people, and but we're gonna do it, but we're gonna do it for a good cause. And so what we're gonna do is put like subliminal message, for example, put subliminal message in there like seek God, Shangri-La is within you, like on and on and on. So draw all these albums they called the Joker cards, like yeah, it's getting a little complex, but there's these 6 albums. The concept was there's these 6 Joker cards because the Dark Carnival was coming, gonna come and take over the Earth, and there was going to be 6 Joker cards, which is essentially an album, but there was like a whole mythos behind it. Like you used to get those books that were in the albums back in the day. It had like whole books describing what the Joker card was about, and on and on and on, and all kinds of occultism in there because ICP is very studied in the occult. It's very they're not even hiding it to even openly tell you. So, um, and they were putting like subliminal messages and neuro linguistic programming, all this stuff to like go seek God, peace is within you. Don't worry about things. Things will be all right. Like stuff like that, putting those in there in the music in a subliminal fucking manner. That at the same time they're creating this fucking Dark Carnival mythos for the 6 Joker cards. And when the 6 Joker card was supposed to be released, they were always saying, okay, when the 6 Joker cards were going to be released, that's going to be the actual apocalypse and the world's going to end. Like, so you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, even as a kid, I was like, all right, yeah, whatever. I'll rap out the piggy pie. I don't give a shit. But but I thought the Joker card stuff was cool. I used to read the books and listen to all the music and stuff like that. And um and here's the thing that I was listening to all this horrorcore stuff going on. I can't even, well, let's just put it like this. I'm not fully on board with the truthers who say that, oh, kids wouldn't go out shoot up a school. Like, uh, grace of God. So anyway, like so I listened to ICP all these fucking years. I stopped listening to him when I was about 16, I guess. Like I want to say like a junior in high school because I got more into like rock and metal and I forgot all about ICP. I didn't listen to it. I had a few songs I still would listen to every now and then, but I didn't really listen to ICP anymore. So fast forward, I go through my life and things are still pretty dark. I go into the army, things get a little better, on and on and on. I get out of the army and I start looking into like at first like truth or conspiracy theory kind of the fear porn. And the more I'm looking into the fear porn, I start getting like out of nowhere like things like, oh, look into this spirituality, look into this, like look into this, look into this. It seemed to like come out of nowhere because I wasn't like, I mean, I was very open-minded. I've always been a very abstract person, but I wasn't like spiritual or religious or anything. I didn't have a religion growing up. Like I didn't really have much of a spiritual background at all. And then all of a sudden, like these things just started happening, and I started looking into spirituality, and next thing you know, I'm here. So, and then you find out the story of ICP, which is not Joe's conspiracy. ICP will tell you themselves, and if you want to like pull apart all their songs to find all the neurolinguistic programming and subliminals, people have done that. You can see it on the internet. Like it's and this whole mythos going on, and certain songs like kind of like programming you it's your fault. Everything that happened, stop being a victim. Everything's like, I was listening to a little bit of, like I said, listening to some ICP the other day, and like a lot of their songs are about that. And so the totality of all of this going into a kid who's listening to them 3 hours a fucking day, every fucking day for, I don't know, 6 years maybe, like, that's not going to have an effect. Like, and you look and I see like certain people like myself or Brandon who have listened to ICP a lot back when they were younger, all of a sudden got spiritual out of nowhere. And it's probably not just because of ICP. I'm not saying that. I'm not telling you people to go listen to ICP. Like I listened to some of their stuff the other day, and I was like, oh my God, how the fuck could I resonate with this at one time? Like it was so fucking dark. I was like listening to Riddle Box. That is the most darkest fucking
Yeah.
album on human history of music. Like it's like so fucking dark. And I was
But
like,
it,
oh my God, I can't listen to this shit. Like there are certain songs I can still listen to a little bit, but I'm not gonna start listening to like ICP for the most part. That but I maybe I needed that back in the day. And was it, call it God or something like that, that was wanted me to listen to ICP, or was it just some three guys that are like, oh, there's some fucked up kids out there, let's try to help them. Here's this horrorcore stuff, yeah, jam out, and we're all the stuff's in there, we'll see what
yeah.
happens later down the line.
So it
And
reminds the
yeah,
actual like total reverse of what they did with like television and stuff. Because when television came into this country in the 50s and stuff, it was all wholesome programming. It was really awesome. It was so good. And then it later, there were these crazy subliminal messages, and it is what it is now. But then ICP is this rap that's just the worst rap ever, talking about joking around killing people and all these things, but they're hiding these deep spiritual truths in there, just so it's this bad stuff they're using. It's supposed to look bad, but it's hiding this good spiritual truth that I would argue a lot of people wouldn't want that spiritual truth out there for people to discover, because at the end of the day, the real spiritual truth is that you realize you're not a victim. And when people aren't a victim, they don't buy into the materialism and the other rap stuff and all the stuff as much. So I could totally see that. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And it's like, it's another thing, it's all right, I didn't really have much of a spiritual background, so it played out in my life differently. Some people like I was looking into this, and Brandon even told me about a friend of his that had the same experience. They became like Christians, like religious people later, even though they were juggalos, talking rapping about killing people with axes at one time. Now they're like Christians, and in a good way. Like, not, I'm not talking shit about them. I'm just saying, like, there's a totality that was shaped your consciousness, that was through all this propaganda that's been going on for fucking eons. And everybody has a little bit of a different structure of consciousness. So when you add propaganda to an individual structure, it's going to have to follow the structure of somebody, that somebody has. So things are going to play out in different ways. And yeah, I mean, these days you look into it, and the juggalos are still around. There's still people, and the people that still call themselves juggalos, they're like kind of Christian now, since ICP came out with that last Joker card and revealed it, and blah blah blah. So now they kind of more embrace that kind of thing more than the horrorcore back in the day. But but yeah, I there's no fucking way that didn't have an influence on me. Now I can't say that was the only thing. There probably could have been tons of things, but talking about propaganda, we can accept, okay, we can program people, and we're talking about cult magic, we can program people. How does how my life unfolded, how can I separate me from being programmed for 6 years, like so deeply that 20 years later I can recite a song I haven't heard? Like, so anyway, I just want to put that in there, and it really makes you think about good and bad, and what's good and what's bad, and how complex things truly fucking are. So
100%. Um, well, I think this might be a good place to. I mean, unless you have anything you want to say, Jeff, I don't want to cut you off, but we can even open with this in our next show, because I think it's just so mind blowing that you could hide this message, right, in something that's like so sinister. It's crazy. So you really never know.
yeah, there's one juggalo that put it really a funny way. He's like, here, I thought for years I was innocently listening to zombie clowns kill people with axes. And turns out the whole time they were programming my mind to seek God. I feel fucking tricked. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Amazing.
Yeah, it's wholesome somehow. And what you said, Joe, when they revealed the last album or the last card, it became more Christian.
in a sense,
When we
just
spoke
more
about that,
openly.
yeah,
What's that?
when we
Yeah,
spoke
well,
about that earlier, I had the thought that I think this is a one-off thing or a one-time thing, right? It's the movement that it went along, and it cannot be
no.
recreated now
That's why I
because
tell
it's
people
interactive.
don't have your kids be listening to ICP. You're bad fucking parents. But
Yeah.
but there was a time in the 90s and early 2000s where ICP was relevant, and a lot of kids just wanted to listen to zombie clowns kill fucking
It made more sense
misers
in
and
the
shit.
real world, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It
in a
gave
way.
you like a way to play out your dark fantasies.
Yeah, in a joking way too.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much again for coming on and having this conversation. It's really been pretty mind blowing for me, mind opening, and I think the audience really likes it. We have some really good stuff in the chat. So I just want to say a quick shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We didn't get to interact too much, but maybe more in the future we will a little bit. There was some funny stuff going on, but it's just a cool place to hang out. If you're going to watch the show anyway, you might as well hang out in the chat, get along with everybody. And yeah, so my website, morelawsmoreproblems.com. You can check out Joe's channel on YouTube. I put a link in the description, Joe from Joker's Redemption. Jeff is just, some random, he's an AI we made actually, guys. He's not real. We made Jeff, and he lives in our computer. So you can't cancel him or go get him. No, Jeff's a great guy. And whenever, he puts some public stuff out, we will definitely point you toward it. But for now, you can just come here and comment if you have any questions or anything like that. Let us know. Anything you want us to talk about, anything you disagree with maybe or can elaborate on, let us know. And look forward to these discussions, because I plan on having more of them, and they're very interesting. You never know where it's going to go. We had no real idea. We just kind of had a few things we were kicking around, but I knew it was going to go in some really awesome directions. So again, thank you guys.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having
Alive
me.
in your computer.
Yeah, in my computer. I'll feed you tonight if you're good, but you gotta. All right, everybody, I'm gonna take us out just like I took us in with my amazing theme song. Shout out to Quentin Farrell who made this for me. I just have to rewind it. Zoop, there we go. All right, guys, take care.
Bonanza, we're hanging out. It's the Brandon Bonanza show. Bonanza.